Let's begin by introducing you to our partners in crime. We're particularly grateful that we have representatives today from the Department of Health, from Rhode Island Commerce, and from the Department of Business Regulation. I'm going to ask each of the representatives from those agencies to just briefly introduce themselves and give us an idea of what jurisdiction each of these state departments has over the question of reopening for Rhode Island arts organizations. And let's start, Stephen, with you at the Department of Health.
Sure. Thank you, Randy, and thank you for pulling this together. Hello, everybody. Again, Stephen Boudreau from the Department of Health. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer working in the Director's Office and am the Public Health Guidance Official with respect to providing guidance for questions asked. Like
Stephen, you're fading out a bit.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right, I'll speak up. The Department of Health serves as the subject matter expert on all things public health in respect to the guidance that is drafted between the partnership that exists among the Rhode Island Commerce and the Department of Business Regulation, all of which are represented here today.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And who's here from the Rhode Island Commerce?
Ben.
Hi, folks. My name is Ben Mays. I'm a policy advisor at Commerce. I may have a couple other colleagues as well, Brian Hodge, perhaps, but very happy to be here. I've worked very closely with my colleagues at the Department of Business Regulation and the Department of Health over, God, more than a year now on the state's reopening standards. I've really appreciated being able to partner with Randy and RISCA on reopening standards for the arts and cultural institutions of Rhode Island. And it really is a partnership between Commerce, DBR, and RIDO. Commerce works very closely with stakeholders in various sectors to get a deep understanding of how their organizations function, how their businesses operate, so that we can bring that perspective to the process of developing these standards. But again, it's really a close working collaboration with our colleagues in other state agencies.
Great. Thank you, Ben. And we're really pleased to have the director of the Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation here with us today, Liz Tanner. Liz?
Thank you, Randy, and thank you to my colleagues. Yes, I feel like I talk to Ben more than I talk to just about anybody else, it seems like these days. And Steve, we're still talking quite a bit, but it comes and goes, it seems like. But my name is Liz Tanner. I'm the director of the Department of Business Regulation. I'm also the chair of the COVID Enforcement Task Force. We have 30 inspectors and a team of staffers who are charged with responding to all the complaints and questions that we receive, several hundred per week from citizens across the state, and then working with establishments. We're very much focused on education and training. We're not out to get anyone, but sometimes we see egregious things and we want to make sure that there's a level of compliance so that our citizens have a culture of compliance and the want and the desire and the need to go out and continue to restore the economy. So we're very much focused on making things comfortable for everyone so that they can want to be out and about and having as much of a normal life as we certainly can. And so I welcome the opportunity to have this conversation. Things change often. This is the fourth conversation I've had like this week in an open forum. And I had to rewrite all my notes from yesterday to today. So if we don't have the perfect answer for you, we'll get back to you because the rules do change and we're constantly trying to make better accommodations to make it easier. So thanks, Randy, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Liz. And I was going to say, this is why God made erasers, but also why he made websites that can be changed pretty quickly. So please keep tuned in and we'll provide you with as much information as we can. I'm also delighted that we're able to partner in this endeavor with our friends at the City of Providence Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. Delighted that their Deputy Director, Lizzie Arujo, is here. And Lizzie, you have a little bit of an announcement to make?
Yeah, hi everybody, thank you for having me. We here in Providence are announcing at this moment, actually at a press conference, that the City of Providence is waiving all city service fees for outdoor events. for businesses and for event organizers. Police, fire, street closure fees will all be waived through January 1st, 2022. And we are so happy to be in this room with all these smart people and hoping we can get and give some answers today.
Great. Thank you, Lizzie. That's great news too. So just so you know, and if I feel like I'm pushing this forward, I want to make sure that we get as many answers as we can to as many of the questions that we gathered in advance before our time runs out at 1 o'clock. We've organized the questions that we've received into 5 different categories, and we'll pause at the end of each category's questions to see if there's anything in the Q&A that we can feed back to our panelists for responses. The 5 categories, and I know it feels a little bit like Jeopardy because it looks like it: outdoor events, indoor events, vaccinated, tested, infected, funding, and if things go bad. The good news is that our panelists will not have to answer in the form of a question. So I'm going to move to the first question that we've got, and that is under outdoor events. What are current restrictions on outdoor performances? Number of attendees, distancing, masks. How does the size of the space influence any and all of these factors? I'm going to toss that to Stephen Boudreau at Department of Health to begin with. Stephen?
Thanks, Randy. So outdoor performances have the same capacity restrictions right now as outdoor venues of assembly, which is to say up to 50% of that venue's capacity with a capacity limit of 500 people. 6-foot physical distancing is still a must. It must always be maintained between people who are not from the same household. And within the 6-foot distancing requirement, not all outdoor venues will be able to accommodate 50% of the venue capacity or 500 people. The 6-foot distancing requirement does take precedence over the 50% capacity. So although there are capacity limits set, if you are spacing people 6 feet apart in order to meet the physical distancing requirement and you can't reach the 50% capacity, then you're maxed out already.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Does DBR or Commerce have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll say that, those are what the rules are for now. There are different sets of rules, and we came out with a chart. I'm not sure if we're going to put the chart up on there, but there should be a chart coming out today that will show you what we're looking at for numbers later. I will, again, because it's the 4th time I've had this conversation, I'll say that, the later you can have your event, the better. So you should hold it off as long as you possibly can, because the rules will lessen, at least fingers crossed that they will lessen as the summer goes on. We've blocked it off basically between now and May 1st, and then there's May 1 to May 15, May 15 to June 4th, I think it is, and then sort of June 4th, forward, we're still not sure. If you're looking to have events in August or September, we have absolutely no idea what the rules will be, but again, fingers crossed, you can assume that they will be later than they are now, right? And so we're doing a progressive approach. But I'll also say that overall, things that won't change for the entire summer is that there will always be masks required. I don't, unless the CDC or the federal government comes up with something, masks will always be required. There probably will be for many more months. There's always going to be some sort of a capacity restriction. We know we can't hold back things like parades and things like that, but there will likely be some sort of capacity restriction, and there will always be some sort of social distancing restriction. So whether it's 6 feet or 3 feet, that's all going to be determined as the summer goes along. But those are the 3 things that you should know that you're always going to have to comply with, whether it's indoor, outdoor, no matter what it is. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overarching thing rather than kind of, I very much try not to answer how many people you can have at an event until I talk to you one-on-one, because everybody's got so many unique circumstances. It's hard to say generally what your scenario is without knowing the footprint, indoor, outdoor, food, not food. There's lots of factors.
Great. And let me jump in here and say that our colleagues in these other state agencies have been incredibly accommodating. I think in order to protect them from going completely insane, if you want to send your questions to us, we can share it with them and get answers back to you rather than just sending everything to Liz Tanner's overburdened inbox.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Unless there's more comment, I'm going to move to the next question. What should we know about performers operating outdoors in front of an audience? Choral and instrumental spacing on stage, masked or unmasked? Who wants to try this?
So I think this is me. I'm not sure if Russ is on. Okay. So performances are permitted to happen. All performers should be 14 feet away from the crowd. If you can't do that and you can put up a plexi barrier, then they can be 6 feet away from the crowd. The performers should also be distanced as much as they can as well, particularly if they're singing. We've heard great success on the covers that you can put over certain instruments to prevent air coming out of, let's just say, a tuba of something coming out. There are covers that you can do, and so we would encourage you to think about ways to protect your performers as well as those in the stage. We want to limit the exchange of commonly touched objects, particularly microphones, which is a known way of transferring the virus. So microphones should be wiped down in between performances if they're going to be mutually used. Ideally, you have multiple microphones so that as few hands as possible are touching them. Is there anything I missed on here, Steve, or did I get it all?
Good.
Any other comments from either Commerce or Department of Health? Is this the same for choral singers as well, the 14 feet? And
Yes.
is it 14 feet between each singer on stage?
That is the rule as of now. We would like to try to maintain that for now. Yes, please.
Okay. Again, the Q&A exists for you to send questions to us to pose to the panel. Anything from Commerce?
Nope, not
Move on then. Oh, hi, Ben. Nope. Okay. Any guidance on things like box office operations, food services for audiences and for performers with masks off, ? Organized in pods or general seating? Ben, you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So for concession operations, food and beverage operations should absolutely be followed. That's the restaurant guidelines, which is available at reopeningri.com. Sorry, I'm just trying to see the masks. Should be encouraged to be worn at all times. If someone is eating food and beverage, they can remove them. But you are required to wear a mask at all times when you're not eating and drinking when you're at a performance. So,
for an outdoor performance, should the eating and drinking area be separate from the audience area?
yeah, absolutely. You should keep this away from high traffic areas for sure. So.
Okay, great. Anything more from our colleagues at DOH or DBR?
No.
On that particular question? We didn't touch much on box office operations. Is there anything we should know about that?
So we are currently encouraging contactless payments and ticketing, and advanced reservations are also encouraged. So those are some things that we're encouraging at this point in time. And if people are queuing to come in for a performance, it's important to have line stanchions, things like that, to facilitate an orderly inflow of people, so that you can maintain safe physical distancing for people entering and exiting the premises.
Okay. One final question in this category. Reopening guidelines for summer 2021 youth camps. Who wants to jump on that one?
Well, I'll say that, so I think I said this is the fourth event like I've had this week, and so this is the fourth time I've had this question, and so unfortunately it's the fourth time I'm going to say we don't have it yet. It is being worked on. Everybody wants this, so it should be out as soon as possible. We're just waiting for final approval on the information from RIDO for the summer youth camp. So there will be forthcoming information. Camps will be allowed to happen. We'll get the guidance out to you when we have it.
Great, Liz. And again, we'll play a role in being a conduit for that information as well. Todd, are there any Q&As that we should share with the panel before we move to the indoor performance?
Yeah, there's questions, and this might be getting ahead of something else coming up, but it's worth asking now. There's questions related to vaccination of performers and if that affects spacing. So if all the performers are vaccinated, does that affect the spacing And also questions about if the 14 feet from a crowd and 14 feet away meant from other singers, like the 14 feet thing was both from other singers and from a crowd as well. It sounds like that the case is yes, unless there's a plexiglass barrier between the singers and the audience for that one. Anyway, those two.
So to the second question, you are correct. The answer is 14 feet from the audience and 14 feet from each of the performers. And this first question about vaccination is that there really are no changes expected to the protocols right now in terms of masking and physical distancing, regardless of an individual's vaccination status.
Great. And one more, if I can, Randy.
Sure.
Dave Neves brought up that the 14 feet between singers and instrumentalists was reduced to 6 feet if they remained masked, according to the guidelines adjusted recently by RIDE. Is that true, Stephen?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay, great. Going to move to the next section, indoor events. We're going to start with, if we are in compliance with regulations, when will indoor performances be able to resume? What questions should we be considering as we start to think about in-person events once more?
So yeah, I'll take that. Yes,
Go ahead.
Indoor performances are currently allowed. They can resume if the restrictions that you are following are the same restrictions that are placed on indoor venues of assembly, meaning 50% capacity or up to 250 people in an indoor venue.
Anything else that, and that's a really broad question, that should be considered as a small or medium-sized arts organization begins to think about in-person events once more?
Yeah, I mean, it's all the standard things, and Ben and Liz, please feel free to weigh in, but you know, it's can you manage what it is you're seeking to do and accomplish physical distancing? What do you have in place with respect to cleaning protocols? Are your rules clear and posted around masking, et cetera? So it's all that we've been listening to and hearing about for a year now, and just ensuring that you have policies that are well known and are in place.
One other item I just mentioned is I 100% agree with Director Tanner that you know, really emphasizing future capacity limits is difficult given how quickly the public health landscape is shifting. But yesterday it was announced that starting May 15th, indoor capacity will increase from 250 to 500 people for indoor venues of assembly. Of course, subject to the 50% capacity limit and the 6-foot physical distancing between parties. So, you know, I know in some of the conversations I've had with various leaders in the arts and culture space that, you know, 250 is pretty limited. So hopefully the doubling of indoor capacity for venues of assembly provides a little bit more flexibility and options to do some greater performances as we enter the summer months.
Great.
And I'll just add that, you know, I'm on a team that meets weekly that talks about how the most frequent cases are transmitted. And very rarely is it the job someone's doing or the event someone's coming at that it's clear transmission. It's almost always the stuff that nobody thinks about, which is the ingress and egress of people, right? So while you've got everybody distanced inside of a big, huge theater, if everybody comes in at the same time and they're in a big line to get out at the same time, you got to figure out how you're going to do that. Can you do ticketed entry and then have them ticketed time departure? The restrooms, everybody seems to think, oh, you know, I have my mask on, and they take their mask off when they go into the bathroom, which is a much smaller space where you're all sharing the same airflow. So that's always a tricky spot. So you've got to really figure out how you're going to handle the bathrooms. And then same thing with ticketing. You know, that's come up, the contactless ticketing, right? So in addition to protecting your customers, you're really wanting to protect your employees or your volunteers that are working the event. So you really want to think about how many times they're in contact with the same thing, and if they're touching the same thing and they're moving on to the next person, you know, all of those things should be considered, not just for outdoor events, but particularly for indoor events. And so we just want to remind you to think about the entire experience, walking in the door and walking out of the door, maybe even parking, depending on what your situation is, not just the event itself. It's really important to think about the whole picture.
Great. Thank you, Director Tanner. I'm going to move through to the next question, and keep in mind that the way these responses have been coming from these state agency colleagues, we can say in some instances asked and answered. In this case, what are current restrictions on indoor performances or art exhibits? Number of attendees, distancing, masks. How does the size of the space influence any and all of these factors? Some of this has already been answered. Anyone want to add anything more that hasn't been said to this point?
One item I just add on art exhibits, and Steve and Director Tanner, feel free to jump in if I'm saying anything off base here. But for art exhibits, those would fall under museums, historical, cultural sites, which does have a different capacity standard. So if you do run an art museum, the capacity limit is 1 person per 50 square feet indoors.
Great.
I'll also just bring
Again,
up,
if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll just bring up, you know, I'm not sure how many folks here, but if it's more like a festival where things are being sold, you know, so, and this would be more outdoor, but if you're selling art exhibits and things like that, or more like a farmer's market style, you know, they have a different set of rules too. So I won't go through them, but if it's more of a market that things are being bought and sold, there's a different set of rules there too that are more lax because they're moving. You know, people are moving instead of sitting in one place at the same time. So you can always ask for those rules as well if you need some help there.
And what we will do is we will gather all of these links and put them in the FAQ that we'll publish after this session is completed. Okay, moving on. Are there any differences between the kinds of performances? For example, youth theater, dance, instrumental, or choral music?
I'll just add that if the performers are professionals, as in being paid to do what they're doing, we put them in a different category, at least for the holidays we did, because we know that sort of, you know, this is their livelihood. This is money that they rely upon. So if you have a professional performers and you want to have some sort of performance with them, we'd be willing to hear what you're asking for. You know, what accommodations can be made, because we've treated professional athletes and professional performers differently than we have volunteers.
Okay. Anything else on this from health or commerce?
No.
I'm going to move on then. Ventilated, unventilated spaces. I couldn't find a picture of an air conditioner in the arts organization, so I had to improvise. HVAC requirements for summer, small spaces with old air conditioning units or poorly ventilated. Is this a DBR appropriate question?
So I'll just say that if the venues that are in this space can have highly sophisticated ventilation units. So, for example, like movie theaters, they have you know, sort of world-class ventilation units. We have considered increasing the capacity if an engineer can sort of write us a letter that says that they have these special ventilation units. So, so we'd be willing to have a conversation if you have a sophisticated ventilation unit that to potentially allow you to have more capacity. But you know, that'd be on a case-by-case basis. We actually have a team of people who are educated to understand engineering reports so that they can figure out what those best ventilation, I obviously don't know what I'm talking about as far as ventilation stuff, but we're willing to have a conversation with venues who may want to increase their capacity if they have best-in-class ventilation services.
Great. Health or commerce want to weigh in? Okay. This actually is an example of what the Director Tanner mentioned about the face covering and instrument covering here. Will performers need to wear masks when they are off stage? Stephen, I think you're keyed up for this.
Simple. The answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Will they need to wear a mask when they are on stage? Let's say they're performing a play on a stage.
Liz, do you know how we've got?
We have, for the holidays, performers were wearing masks on stage. The only exceptions for mask wearing right now, Steve would correct me if I'm wrong, is when it's dangerous, right? So we have a couple of manufacturers who work with fire, so something like that. Or when you have a medical exception, so those are the only two. So that's what it is as of right now. Will that change in the future? I'm not sure, but we try to be reasonable, but those are the only allowed exceptions at this time.
Great. Thank you. Just a couple more questions and then we'll circle back to the Q&As. Regarding social distancing, what are some best practices for audiences? If patrons are seated more than 6 feet apart, is it okay for them to remove masks?
Just to follow up from the last time, no. Masks, they're very important. We don't see those rules changing on masks anytime soon.
From a public health perspective, it is the one thing we have been doing for the past year since this started that we know works. So it's not likely that we'd loosen that restriction for some time.
How about people sitting that are with the same household? Let's say a husband and wife sitting at a concert.
Indoors?
Still masks?
No.
Okay. Clear.
If they're eating and drinking, but it depends on what you're eating and drinking, right? So at a restaurant, you can do it when you're eating and drinking. That's why we have a big distance. But if there's there's a lot of factors here. If you're outside eating, drinking, different than being inside. But inside, again, you're all sharing the same airspace in an enclosed facility. That's the dangerous part.
Okay. One final question in this category. What guidelines exist for cleaning and disinfecting?
So yeah, I took a stab at this in the chat box as well. It's just a matter of ensuring that you have a protocol in place for an environmental cleaning of the establishment at least once per day, paying particular attention to things that are high touch, like your ticketing stations.
Stephen, you're fading out just a little bit.
Ticketing stations, your elevator buttons, door handles, these kinds of things need to be cleaned a little more regularly than just once a day, but once a day for the entire establishment is the minimum we would expect to see.
Okay, any techniques or suggestions other than standard disinfecting
I mean, we can send you some information for an EPA website where specific cleaners and agents are outlined.
Okay. And I think there are some organizations, maybe a few that are represented in this call or attending this call who have gotten this down quite well. If you have information on how you are handling this, please send it to us and we'll put this all together so that everyone can benefit from your experiences as well.
Yeah, Randy,
so I think that's
helpful.
it. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, I think it's helpful to understand that this language is a little murky. So you hear people talking about a deep cleaning as though that's some special service. We're really talking about thorough cleaning. So using the appropriate agents and making sure that you do it thoroughly is all that's really needed.
Okay, before we move on to the next section, which is vaccinated, tested, and infected, Todd, can you circle back on some Q&As?
Yes, and you just tell me to stop when you've had enough.
Okay.
Mask staying on while seated and distance at outdoor performances. It sounds like that's a yes. Great. Performers needing to wear masks if they're performing both indoors and outdoors when they're performing. Sounds like that's a yes too, correct? Great. If performers in a play are in a pod, does that affect their proximity to one another and their performances?
I'll go back to, again, professional or not professional. If it's professional, we're willing to have a conversation to kind of see if there's something we can do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Liz. Hold on one moment, please. There were questions about if you're a museum or historic site, are you required to keep a visitor log for contact tracing? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. When it comes to, and I think we answered this, performers with a 14-foot distance from one another, that if you're in a small theater, that doesn't change. If you're masked and vaccinated, you can be 6 feet apart, question mark?
No changes to the protocols or the guidance based on an individual's vaccination status at this time.
And again, these are what the rules are today.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's a helpful,
Everything
I think that's a helpful thing to underscore. I'm getting questions from people about, will these things change? Will distances change? And as you said earlier, Liz, we're working with what we know today, and hopefully that will change. So anyone who's having questions about exact numbers and what they'll be in August, that's not something we're going to know right now, right?
No, we're nervous about April and May, right? So for sure, April and May, we're going to be really tight to the chest. I think you'll start to see some loosening sometime in June. And if things still go okay, you might see a little bit more in July. August is too far away for us to really even guess about. But we're still keeping everything pretty close to us for April and May, and then we'll see how things go.
Great. And again, Randy, stop me whenever. Performers do have to wear a mask both indoors and outdoors, even when they're vaccinated. We answered that earlier.
Yep.
Face shields as an acceptable alternative for actors who must wear a mask while performing. No needs to be a mask. Okay. And then there are questions from a few people about outdoor events. And hold on, because it came up in a few different ways. If events are ticketed, but outdoor space is just open, how do you arrange and control audiences? Do you need security for outdoor events that are large kind of festival type events?
So I feel like this is one of those that it kind of depends on your scenario. Is it I attend the concerts on Blythe Wald's lawn, and it's a scenario where everybody's already socially distanced from each other, and I wouldn't need to worry. But there are others, like the Bristol 4th of July concert series, where everybody's right on top of each other. So it's a matter of getting people distanced. Whether you feel like you need security or there to apply that is entirely up to your scenario.
And I think that is all for now in this section. There's some other questions that I think we'll answer in future sections.
Okay, and we're doing really well on time, so moving forward. Vaccinated, tested, infected, the first one, and some of this again asked and answered. Do you recommend testing prior to rehearsals or performances? Will proof of vaccination replace proof of a negative COVID test result? Stephen, you want to try that?
So the department continues to recommend testing for rehearsals and performances, regardless of anybody's vaccination status.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask the availability of testing. And this is still cost-free for individuals, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving forward. Are there any guidelines about distancing if all performers have been vaccinated or if not? I think that's been answered, but can you reiterate?
Again, there aren't any changes.
Okay, it's still the 6 feet
That's
maintained
correct.
from people who are not of the same household. Okay. If a performer, student, or staff member tests positive for COVID, will the program or production need to be shut down for a period of time?
So it really depends on who's been identified as the close contacts. When we do the contact tracing on this, who's the person that tested positive and who they've been in contact with. The program or production may need to suspend their operations depending on what the outcome of that tracing is. But anyone who was within 6 feet of the positive individual for a total of 15 minutes or more is generally who we consider to be a close contact. And that starts 2 days before their symptom onset. So it's pretty extensive research that occurs in order to get to the bottom of that, to make sure that we are not suggesting that anybody close their doors if in fact that's not necessary.
Okay, but if it's determined that it might be necessary, does that directive come from the Department of Health?
Yes.
Okay, and I noticed that you indicate that current exemptions from close contact quarantine can be found in a particular executive order, and we will post that executive order along with all this other information. Does anyone from DBR or Commerce want to comment on this particular question?
I just want to flag again, it's rarely the event, the performance, the work. It's almost always the smoke break that the workers went to take, or the coffee run that they went to go do, or the drink they got after the performance. Like that's most often when the virus gets transmitted, right? So it's a constant, it's a culture that you're trying to create of compliance so that people do the right thing all the time, because they usually do a good job when somebody's looking at them, but when somebody's not looking at them, that's when things go wrong. So it's making the entire scenario a safe environment, not just when you're doing what you're there for.
Great, super. And then my personal favorite question: should a venue collect written vaccination status from performers, staff, volunteers, and audience members? And is this even allowable? How does one handle a non-vaccinated person?
Again, the Department of Health is not going to take a stand right now on changing strategies, protocols, guidance around the acknowledgement of someone's vaccination status. That's just not something that we're diving into right now. I'm not saying it's not being looked at, but I think the feeling is that for now, businesses are considering moving in that direction, and whether or not that's allowable is not something I'm prepared to weigh in on. It's more of a legal question than a public health matter.
Great. Anyone else in the agency teams interested in commenting on this? So Todd, do you want to loop back to some Q&As?
Yeah, and I'm going to bring in some that are from prior sections as well. Is testing prior to rehearsals or performances recommended or required?
Recommended, I believe.
Recommended.
Is that correct, Liz?
Yeah. Recommended, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not really a question. Is an event held outside in a tent with open sides for airflow? Which restrictions apply, as an indoor event or an outdoor event?
So I'll say that if all 4 sides are down, you may as well be indoors. It would be considered an indoor event. If at least 2 sides are up, and I mean whole sides, not just like a little hole in the side, that would be considered outdoors.
Great, thank you. Some questions related to ventilation I'm going to ask together. Ventilation in restrooms, does that need to be enhanced? Actors Equity requires that for backstage bathrooms.
That's highly encouraged. You know, I mean, that's a source of trouble is the restroom, right? Because they're smaller, the ceilings are lower. You know, whatever you can do would be great.
Are open doors, windows, and ceiling fans acceptable ventilation for indoors?
I mean, air movement at all is good. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong here. Air movement is good. You know, it's not going to give you a higher capacity if you have a fan in the window, but you know, air movement is good.
Absolutely.
If an auditorium, like a school, doesn't have an HVAC system but has HEPA filters / air scrubbers, is there any guidance regarding how many filters need to be used?
So I am definitely not smart enough to answer that question, but I know of people who are. So that would be something that you would reach out to us and we would connect you with people who understand those kinds of things.
Great, so reach out for more information kind of question. Can you talk about the different requirements for museums / historic sites that allow people to wander freely versus those where people are on tours? I believe tours aren't allowed now, but you have a sense of when they will be permitted.
Ben, I'm going to ask you to follow up on this one because I think you're better at it, but tours are permitted, walking tours, again, masked and in smaller groups. But Ben, do you have more detail?
Yeah, tours are permitted at this time. You know, I think it would be encouraged that you keep the groups that go on tours to a reasonable size, and ideally to minimize the number of parties or households that are included in those group tours. And to the extent you can facilitate spacing between individuals in those group tours, that would be good as well. But they are currently permitted. I think the key thing to emphasize for museums, art galleries, is that they do fall under separate guidelines. So while there are a lot of similar standards and principles like, you know, physical distancing and wearing masks, one big distinction is the capacity limit, where if you are a museum and you don't have, an event with a classic start time, right? And it's more like a free flow of people throughout the day. You fit under different capacity limits, and the capacity limit for that is one person per 50 square feet.
And I'll just add, it is pretty rare for, I'm struggling to think of anything that's not allowed. There should be very little, if anything, that's not allowed. Everything's allowed so long as, it fits the rules, right? So, so when there's been a couple of questions of, can we do this? Just about everything is still permitted. I can't even think of anything that's not permitted. I think the one thing that is coming to mind is facials, right? Because you get two people unmasked, can't be in front of each other, but you're now allowed to do facials with masks on. So, so just about everything is allowed. It's just, there's masking, distancing, capacity, those kinds of things. But if you're hearing that something's not allowed, please reach out to us, because we want to try really hard to find a way to make it be okay.
Just a couple other things to add to museums and cultural sites is physical distancing is really important, given that it isn't quite as structured as a performing arts venue where people go to their seats and they sit down for the entire performance. So, think a lot about how you can have, orderly, structured flows of attendees in and out of your facilities. Really think about how you can prevent mingling and congregating at certain exhibits. I know whenever I, really like seeing a particular piece of artwork, there often are a lot of people there. So pay extra attention to how you can maintain physical distancing in your museum and facility, and how you can prevent mingling and congregating.
So I'm getting
I'm
getting a few questions about bringing music into nursing homes and bringing performing arts into nursing homes. We're not going to be talking about funding or anything along those lines today, but I would imagine that any activities, and please correct me, that are happening in a nursing home would follow guidance related to those adult living facilities, correct? In combination, obviously, with performing guidelines and distance.
Eva, I don't have any information on that, do you?
Either. I'd love to, if you could send me that in email so we can get some answers for you. And for Eliana.
Great. There's questions about contact logs. So if you're an art gallery and you're not ticketed, should you keep a contact log? If you're doing outdoor events as well, and there's a specific question related to that I will find after I just rediscover it in the sea of questions here. Yeah, so that question first, I guess, contact logs for things like art galleries and outdoor events.
We would really like to see you maintain a contact log, for all venues, regardless of indoor or outdoor.
I'll say it's required for food establishments.
Yeah.
Highly recommended for others.
Great.
It's just so helpful when we need to look back in time to see who's been in contact with who.
And let me also remind you all, please only put questions in the chat. Don't put complaints. Don't put other kinds of information, because it's a lot to try to negotiate here, as you can imagine.
John, I'm going to move to the next section,
please.
And then we can loop back. I want to make sure we cover everything. And the next section is something that we get a lot of questions about, and it regards funding. Are funds being made available by the state or federal government to assist with reopening issues? What do we know about this?
And does Commerce know anything at this point?
Yeah, sure. So obviously PPP has been available for many weeks now. And if this is an opportunity that your organization is eligible for and interested in, and you haven't taken advantage of it yet, be strongly encouraged. The Shuttered Venue Operators Program, Randy, I believe, did you? I think you've been sharing a lot of information about that.
We've been sharing a lot of information on this, and the information is still a little murky. So I think there's a session that's being organized in the next week or so with more detailed information on this.
Great.
Everyone's aware of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, for the folks on this call, I think that's an opportunity that certainly stands out as one that would be worth taking advantage of. So those are the immediate two that come to mind. And Commerce is actively working on seeing how we can create additional opportunities for impacted organizations in our state.
I will also mention that the Arts Council is getting some dedicated funding through the American Rescue Plan that we have not seen any guidelines on yet, but we expect to see soon. That may be of some assistance in this particular regard. I'm curious about if a small arts organization needs to buy cleaning supplies, get personal protective equipment, provide capital improvements to facilitate safety for their audience members. Are these the kinds of things that you think funding will be available for?
These are things that we're actively working on right now. And as it relates to the American Rescue Plan, I mean, one challenge we are dealing with right now is we don't have the federal guidance yet on what the parameters are going to be. So there is a provision in the American Rescue Plan that for the funds that have been provided to state governments, they can address the negative economic impacts resulting from the global pandemic. But that's just about as much information as we have in terms of the parameters for providing additional small business and nonprofit organization supports. But we're looking very closely at additional federal guidance and parameters on the American Rescue Plan, and are working in the meantime to provide additional supports.
Hey,
And
Randy,
that's exactly what's happening with us as well. We know the money's on its way, but we don't know how it's supposed to be used.
and just to tap onto the back of that, if small organizations are looking for things like masks or hand sanitizer or handy wipes, the Department of Health does have a mini grant program through which they are funding several community organizations to provide that to their sort of constituencies. So I would encourage anybody who's looking for that to just reach out to me so I can connect you with that program to see if there's anything available in your community.
Great, and we'll include the information on that in the FAQ as well. I'm told by the amazing Molly Flanagan, our individual artist program director, that they are working on scheduling a webinar with the Small Business Administration on the shuttered venues operating grants program in the next week or so. So more to come on that. Please stay tuned to the Arts Council's social media and website to get more information on that.
I'll
I'm
just
going to
add real
move.
quick, the local chambers of commerce, they have a lot of equipment on site. So if you're a Chamber of Commerce member, you should reach out to your chamber president to see what they have available for you right now.
Great, thank you, Director. There's one just really quick thing. If things go bad, and then we'll use the remaining 10 minutes that we have for any questions that Todd has managed to harvest. So this is a very specific and sort of big picture kind of, can you share some force majeure contract language that specifically relates to COVID and capacity limits perhaps being changed if an uptick occurs? I think that the idea behind this is how do we pivot if we are in a contractual relationship with someone and now we can't do what we wanted to do because things got bad? Any advice on that?
I think the only thing I'll say is, we had a lot of this last summer with Airbnbs. So people who had rented out Airbnbs for the summer, and it's a tough call, right? Because it's a personal contractual relationship. There were some particularly egregious scenarios where we sent the information to the Attorney General's office, and I believe that they did some work with some folks. But I'm not sure how much this applies for there. But I know that you should either talk to your private attorney or to understand what you need to do. But the Attorney General's office, they did get a little bit involved last year in this scenario.
Okay, we'll see what we can find out on this. Before I turn it over to Todd for questions in the remaining 7 minutes that we have, please feel free to, this is not the end of it. keep sending us questions. As appropriate, we'll send it to our state partners for their advice and counsel. But for now, Todd, why don't you share with us what you've got?
Sure, there's a couple questions related to plans and who needs to see them and if they need to be submitted to someone. So are there plans, permits, templates required for performances, or may we proceed and follow the guidelines? And the follow-up to that being, to whom do we submit COVID safety plans for review and approval? Is that necessary, and how long would that take if so?
Well, Ben, I'll take that one. So there's a COVID event template that we can give to Randy. He can share with all of you. They should be submitted to DBR. We have on our, it's dbr.ri.gov. I'm sure Randy can send that to you. There's an online form that you can fill out and you can attach the information there. If you have computer issues, we'll give you a person you can work directly with. We're asking for them to come in 30 days in advance. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to have an event if you can't get it to us within 30 days, but it does. Right now, we're really trying to focus on graduations. So we have all the graduations and proms, so that's a heavy load for us. And again, we're trying to push everything out until later on in the season. But if you want to submit things now because you're trying to figure out what you can do, can you start? I saw a question about advanced tickets. You're trying to figure out if you can do advanced tickets. Again, we're rarely, if any time, saying no. We're all just trying to say, this is what you can plan for now, and then hopefully we can give you more and more information as the season goes on. But we can give Randy all the information about where you can submit the information.
I just want to say one quick thing, that Providence does require that to be submitted to the city as well. So that's a part of our application process, that you have to fill out that form, but you only have to do it once. So if you've done it for DBR, just copy that and you can always just send it right to us as well through the application process.
So fair point. The municipality, depending on what your event is, the municipality has to approve it as well. And we very often work together on it. Like Lizzie and I, we're on a weekly meeting together and we talk about different things. And so we can, here's another thing to point out. If you're a facility that does the same thing every week or frequently, we're not going to ask you for a plan for every time either. If it changes dramatically, yeah, we'd like you to. But the earlier you reach out to us, we'll be in touch and we'll try to work things out with you. If you have quick questions, we'll try to answer. Let's put it this way, we are not overwhelmed by this right now, but we're just trying to focus on April and May. So it's not like it's really hard to be in contact with us at this point.
Todd?
Do outdoor bathrooms need to be cleaned after each use?
I mean, I know I'd like to have my bathroom cleaned after every use, but that's just not realistic sometimes. So, it depends on your scenario. But if you can find somebody who does that, I'd like to hire them to come to my house, please.
So essentially as one is able to, for the sake of hygiene, but.
I do know that porta potty companies often have an attendant. It costs extra money, of course, but you can hire people to come and stand clean them.
I think it's just important to document what your process is so that if there are questions, you can point back to, we do this.
Going back to the question about guidance for camps, for now, for plans, should individuals doing camps or organizations doing camps just follow the 2020 guidelines for the meantime?
That's a good idea. Yeah, I really thought there was going to be something out today. Fingers crossed it might come out today. We're just waiting for it. I haven't seen a draft of it, so I can't even tell you what it looks like.
There was a question, the answer to my question about the distancing part for park events that are free and non-ticketed was answered, but not whether the 500 capacity limit applies. If people can come and go, but are seated in the grass and distance, we keep counting. Do they have recommendations on how to contain or control this if there is a cap or limit?
So I assume you're talking about like something that doesn't have a big fence around it and people can
Yeah,
kind
like
of
it sounds like an open park area. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll go back to, I live in Bristol with the Bristol concert series. And what happens is it's just more and more people and more and more people. If you have had that scenario in the past, then you might want to reconsider having it someplace else so that it can be controlled. If you've had this event in the past and you rarely ever meet any kind of a maximum that I'm talking about, then you probably don't need to worry. So again, it's one of those where if you've never had it before, then you might want to be careful. So, we're not going to require you to put fencing around an entire park to limit the number of people coming in. But if it starts to get out of control, are we going to have to figure out a way to handle it? Yeah, if it gets to be too much. So this is one of those that just doesn't have an easy answer.
In Providence, we often require people to even use Eventbrite for free tickets and sign up, even if the event is free and not fenced, so that people can see what the response is to promotion and marketing and can address these kinds of issues before they actually get there on the day of.
Great, thank you, Lizzie. And Randy, this will actually be a last question. I'll fold us into our outro. This has been great about discussing current issues. How can we receive art-specific regulations updates for May, June 4th and beyond? It's not always discussed at the governor's weekly press briefings and is never discussed in this much detail as we are doing so today.
Again, a lot of this is our responsibility toward the arts community. We work with amazing partners, as you can tell from this presentation, and they have been more than willing to share their knowledge and expertise with us. We'll be the information conduit. Please stay tuned to, or if you're not already subscribed to, the RISCA social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook. I particularly refer you to the Facebook groups for arts administrators, for organizations, and for artists and creatives, for individual artists. Both of them will amplify this kind of information. We also have a blog on our website. Lots of ways to get that information out to you, and we will continue to do so. Our time is up. Our gratitude to everybody for their participation in this, both as an attendee and as a presenter. And hopefully as things change, we'll be able to continue to bring you good and valuable information so that you can do what you need to do and do what you want to do. So on behalf of the Arts Council, thank you, Todd, for your work in organizing this as well. And our friends at the Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism in the City of Providence. Thank you, Department of Health. Thank you, Commerce RI. Thank you, Department of Business Regulation, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.